it's my absolute thrill and honor to have Brian Griffin, who is a legendary photographer. As you know, he's done the first 5 Depeche Mode albums. I love that you've done the Bunnymen albums, the 4 Bunnymen albums, the first 4, Ultrabox, Vienna, Only When I Lose Myself, so many, Billy Idol, Rebel Yell. There's so many iconic photos that you would have seen from the 80s and beyond that you'll look at those pictures and you'll think, wow, Brian has actually shot these photos. So it's truly a privilege. And it's, of course, great to have Vaughn George back again. We had an epic drink with Vaughn George last time. So thank you both for joining. And thank you, Vaughn George, for making this happen. Really appreciate it. So, Vaughn George, maybe you want to start things off.
Oh.
Brian
and I just laughing because a very lovely lady just popped up on the screen.
Oh, was that a Tusa?
Probably a Tusa, I don't know. It just
Hello! Mary, what are you doing?
Oh, there's
things.
oh, there. That's amazing.
Of course, I had to add some layers.
Yeah.
She was a good time.
Oh, God.
First of all, I want to say thank you very much, Rob, for once again hosting this. I really enjoyed the last one. I was on for 6 hours last time, so I've told Brian it's got to be at least 6 hours this time. But no, I think what we'll do is today, obviously, Rob, you're the host, so you can ask the questions. I think we'll basically go because Brian's the special guest. We'll keep going until Brian's had enough. But I think what we'll do is in about 90 minutes time, 90 minutes, 2 hours time, we will have the draw. And then we'll also talk, before we do the draw, I just want to say a few words about what Brian and I are doing on the poster print business side. And I think up until that point, the floor is yours to hit Brian with some questions. So knock yourselves out.
Sounds great. Okay, so does anybody want to start off with a question? Don't be shy.
I definitely will.
Okay, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to say hi to Brian and
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Brian. I don't know if we've ever talked face to face before, but A Broken Frame is probably one of my favorite album covers of all time. So I just wanted to say that. But my questions were more about Echo and the Bunnymen, actually. So I know you did the first album. So there were more, and when I've seen Echo and the Bunnymen a few times, and there seems to be this hierarchy within the band members. Is that something that was kind of going into play when you were taking pictures of them or photographs? How was the vibe with those guys?
Yeah, I mean, they were a little bit frustrated with Mac, because Mac,
right, because he's very aggressive.
Frustrated with him. They were very strong individual personalities.
Right.
You don't really find that with a lot of bands, but they're. How can I explain it? I mean, they did eventually get on with it, like, for instance,
right.
In Iceland, it was a little bit, Mac was worried about his shoes, he was worried about being cold because it was like minus 50 or something. They were so strong personalities in their own way. They weren't together, really. I don't know what to say about them coming together. They just sort of came together, but they weren't pally. You know what I mean?
Right.
They weren't great mates. I mean, they were just individuals, really. But they didn't dislike each other. They just were on their own, each one of them. I enjoyed all of them because they were all sort of individual personalities. So Pete was, obviously very different to the rest.
Right.
Mac was certainly different to everybody. Will was very much into his music. Les was just Les. Les was a great bass player.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to explain what they were like. They were quite something, actually. I mean, they were the great band at that time, you know.
Oh, they were fantastic.
I mean, like they were Crocodiles, when they did Crocodiles, I mean, they were really at the top. I mean, they were really going to take over. I mean, they were going to beat U2, they were going to beat Simple Minds, but it didn't work out that way, really. I mean,
I like their music better than U2, to be honest.
To be honest with you, they were the only band I really liked the music of at that particular time. 78, that was, you know, during Crocodiles. It was any music. I mean, I thought they were a great band. Definitely a great band. Yeah.
How did you end up with that gig?
Well, I ended up with it because Rob Dickens, I mean, there's a guy called Rob Dickens. Rob Dickens ended up at the very end as chairman of Warner Brothers. But at the beginning, he took over a part of Warner Brothers called Corova Records. And he had the Bunnymen. I did a photograph called The Rocket Man. I did a photograph called The Rocket Man, a black and white picture for Paul McCartney. And Paul McCartney turned it down. But I made a business card of it. It was quite a big business card, like about 6 inches by 4 inches or something. And Rob pinned it behind his head on his on a board behind his head. He was the head of the label, and he decided he was going to use me as the photographer for the Bunnymen because he absolutely adored that picture. It's called The Rocket Man. It was actually Howard Jones used it as the cover. He bought it and used it as an album cover. I did it for Paul McCartney for Band on the Run for a track called Jet. Paul turned it down, and so it was like a free reign with the image, really. It's become quite a famous image. You look it up, Rocket Man, Paul McCartney, Rocket Man, Brian Griffin. And that's what got Rob to use me as the photographer for Echo and the Bunnymen. Although the album cover, as you full well know, is totally different to the Rocket Man. I mean, it's a colour picture. Anyway, you ask the next question.
Brian, I've got a question.
David.
This is David from Japan. When you were doing the photos for the Depeche Mode albums, did you know the names of the albums before you did the photos, or did you have those in your mind when you set up the shoots?
I think I knew the titles.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure all the music was complete. All the tracks were complete. I'm sure they were very rough.
Like demos.
Yeah, almost like demos in the sense that I didn't really, I have to admit, I didn't really care what the music sounded like. I listened to Daniel's instructions to me. I listened to the band, what they felt about it. I was more interested in how they felt about their music rather than listening to particular tracks or the music itself. Because that's how we came up with the ideas in a way. You know, we sort of got together and formulated an idea. The music was almost irrelevant in a sense at that point in time.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So I got one. Other than the album covers, obviously, that you've done, had you really done any shoots with DM? Like any of maybe the pictures of the inner sleeves of the band, anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did one press session, which Vaughn knows about, which I did down here in Rotherhire in my studio. 82. Was it 82? Was it? Yeah. It was one press session I did, and I also did not using the band. I also did an odd single bag, didn't I? With a woman. What was it called? It was just a cut off body, so with corn coming out of a hand. You probably know it. Depeche Mode fans probably know it. But I did very, very little photography of the band. In fact, when I met the band, can we say visually, which is obviously on only when I lose my
When I lose myself.
when I lose myself, I met the band then. And I met the band in the planning stages of all the album covers, really planning. They just disappeared after that. They were never around after the initial phase of discussing ideas. They were just not around anymore. The person I spoke to after I completed the shoots on those album covers was Daniel Miller, really. Because Daniel just lived down the road. Daniel became, obviously, gradually a very close friend of mine, really. Yeah.
I've got one.
Thank you.
Well, let me follow up real quick on that before you start, Matt. Richard,
Right.
also, I would recommend for anybody, go to briangriffin.co.uk, and he has a photo gallery. If you look under albums, it's sorted by artist title names, and under Depeche Mode, you will actually see the images that he was talking about, the press images that he shot. And he's also done some of the single covers. I believe Love It Itself is one of the covers that he shot, and maybe there's others as well. But definitely check out his website. It's lots of great stuff on there. Sorry about that, Matt. Go ahead. And
Thanks for getting that in, Rob.
Yeah. No. It was just to say, have any of the people you've worked for doing pictures and things and for album covers, etc., contacted you directly rather than being sort of a satellite thing? You know, you've had a call from them saying, look, I really love what you've done, that's maybe stuck in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, many times I got called from the management, for instance, what the record company for was the management who represented bands that were they, and then I was commissioned from the management, not the band. I'm trying, I mean, like, yeah, sorry, I'm thinking of other occasions. I also got called up from the design groups, of course. You know, in other words, the designer of the album sleeves. Like, for instance, let's take, for instance, Ultrabox. I mean, I got called by the designer of that album cover. What else? I mean, like I would be called by the designer. I would be called up by the management of the band. I mean, I did a lot of press work, you know, like publicity for bands, which I took to be very serious work. I mean, I really was really seriously engaged in their photography. Although it was for press, I still was really into it. If it was an album cover didn't go, oh, but it's an album cover. I better work harder on this. I worked equally as hard on the press work as well. So I got called up by management a lot of the time on press. Can I think of anything else apart from management? Not really.
Sounds like it's like word of mouth, you know, within the industry about your photography.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, what happened at those times? I mean, we're talking about like late 70s into the early 80s. I mean, there's a lot happening in music. A lot of labels, a lot of very small labels, really small labels, independent labels in Britain at that time. And you became part of the family. I mean, I was one of the family, you know, of people in the music industry. Well, let's call Brian to do it. Let's get Brian to do it, you know. If it was a studio session where it needed an idea, I probably got the job, you know. I never got jobs like shooting bands against the wall, like in the Ramones cover or something, or I never got that. But also I got editorial as well, you know. I mean, I got editorial work with bands, quite a bit of that as an offshoot from my album cover work. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'm sure that's how Pennybecker got the 101 gig.
Well, I think it's because of Bowie Connect.
Yeah, I remember him. He was a video.
He died last year.
Yeah, very, very good. I mean, I got called up quite a bit by people that, I mean, really sort of, I don't know. I mean, odd people like Jeff Ayeroff over in America, there, LA. People like Larry Vigon, who worked on Larry did a lot of work on on Fleetwood Mac. You know, Larry got in touch with me. I mean, it grew and it grew and it grew. It grew and it grew and it grew. It became incredibly large after a period of time. You know, people saw my covers. They wanted a bit of me. You know, it became like incredibly broad. I can't even answer it. Oh, incredible!
You mentioned Ultrabox, and I love the Ultrabox Vienna cover.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think you said that was like studio paper that was just raveled up. And I also am curious about, besides that, there's some images of Spandau Ballet that look very similar. Who came first, and were they trying to match the other one?
Good question.
That's a really good question. I'll tell you, it answers the two questions for you guys. One is that in this country at the time, music was like crazy. There was like, apart from New Musical Express, apart from Melody Maker, apart from Sounds, we also had like things like New Sounds, New Styles. We had Smash Hits. There were loads of magazines, and they paid photographers quite well. They were really successful, those magazines. You didn't go, oh God, it's like Smash Hits, I'm going to get tuppence for this. It was really quite good money, actually, even on editorial work at the time. And talking about your question with Ultrabox, I did a lot of work with Ultrabox. You've seen on my website. I did work for Smash Hits on New Sounds, New Styles. But anyway, going back to your original question, which was the studio picture, which just done up the road here, 121, 123 Rotherhithe Street. The budgets for expenses were really low, really nothing for shoots. So a roll of background paper would cost, I don't know, what can I say? I mean, with very small money, £40, £50, or like $100, $60 for a roll. And I would, you could beat it up and it would form something to shoot for an album cover for like $100, you know? I mean, a lot of album covers were done really cheaply with no money for expenses. And Ultrabox was like nothing, absolutely nothing to shoot it in terms of expenditure. And it was done in my studio up in Rotherhithe. And it was briefed as a black and white image. They wanted black and white from me. It's really funny you mentioned that because at the moment it's really quite big, this Ultrabox album that's coming out, box set, like Sleepwalk. They wanted Sleepwalk from me because Sleepwalk was in a brown cover, as you know, Sleepwalk, the single, and they haven't got the record company haven't got a copy of it because if they scan it, it's all brown.
They contacted you the other day.
They contacted me the other day. They wanted Sleepwalk, a high res digital file of it.
Yeah, Brian did the typical names dropping thing he did. He texted me, he said, he phoned me up. He said, "Oh, Vaughn, yeah, Ultrabox were just in contact with me this morning." That's just like, yeah. He didn't phone me to say that. I phoned him we're talking about something else, and he just said, "Oh, and by the way, yeah, Ultrabox contacted me this morning." I was just like, yeah, as they do. How's your day?
But it's really funny, Vaughn. I mean, like, what happened in those days, all I did was really work very hard at the ideas on the album covers I did. I mean, some are successful, some are less successful. I worked really hard, always hard at it. And they weren't famous. I mean, it was just a job, all these covers were just like a job. I did the job really well, and I was happy with it. They've become really famous over the years, really. It's only now that they become famous. Sorry. Oh, she's behind a truck. She's great. Wow, she's behind a truck.
You're behind the wheel.
Oh, wow.
Hello. You are so rock and roll. Can I just say that is fantastic?
Oh, that's brilliant.
I'm going to take a screenshot of that.
Hold on, take a screenshot. One screenshot.
Do a wave, Brian. Do a wave. Brian.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, that is.
Sorry, this is great. It's fascinating the Zoom, how people just pop up.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's really rock and roll. Can I just say, full respect.
Where are you on the left-hand side, by the way?
Yeah, the Americans drive on the wrong side of the road, don't they? It's very dangerous.
I thought it's the other way around.
I want to say Ray's over there. Ray Luna. Hello, Ray.
I'm here. Hi, how are you guys? I've been waiting. Hello, Brian. I just want to say, it is a true honor to meet you. I got my package about like a week ago, maybe almost 5 days ago, and I've been waiting to open it. I just wanted to show everyone. First of all, this thing is really packaged well, so thank you for that. It's amazing.
It's really great.
Yeah.
And the staples in the top, I already pulled them out so we'd be ready, and I just wanted to unveil it here if I could.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, Brian and I are doing that.
Wow.
I've got the brains, you've got the looks, kind of thing. But I wanted to ask you if you got it, and are you actually going to be doing a live unpackaging? Yeah.
Oh wow. Oh.
Okay, here we go.
Hold on.
Oh my God, really wrapped, really well.
There's a personalized message in there as well.
Oh, you guys are amazing. Oh my God, wow, it looks amazing. Oh, Vaughn. Look at this, a handwritten note. What isn't that nice?
I give a handwritten note to everyone. What does it say?
Well, thank you. I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna frame it. This is going right up here. Behind here, I'll probably have to lose my Patrick Nagel. But here we go. Everyone signed.
That's
You see it?
Beautiful.
It is gorgeous. I don't want to mess it up, so we'll get one good shot of it.
Can I tell you what to do, how to frame it? I'll tell you how to frame it. Oh, go on.
I'm going to frame it and mat it. Have it matted and
Can I tell
framed.
you how to frame it? What you're going to do is frame it on card or aluminium, the back of it, open it, put it on aluminium and raise it and have a white box around it with a wooden frame around that. Fantastic.
I think Matt Smith, if you're there, Matt actually did that, yeah.
You've got to elevate it up on the background.
Yeah. There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay,
That's what I did earlier. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
I've got another one.
I can't wait. I'm going to probably display it. And then my next, I do actually have a question.
Yes, you do.
My next one's going to be a broken frame. I have to have it and construction time, of course.
Yeah,
I was curious, were you shooting large format like Hasselblad or Leica, or what was your brand of choice? And how did you get that depth of field on broken frame? And you had low light. It looks like you had very low light. And you must have been stopped down to like f/22, or I just, that picture looks like a painting. I mean, it makes Ann Leibovitz look like a Sears portrait photographer. It just. Anyway.
Ann and I work together.
I know, I'm sure she's a sweetheart, but you know what I mean? That image looks like a painting. The colors are so vibrant. I actually thought it was a painting until I saw it on the cover of Life magazine.
Well, you see, Ray, I'm not trying to be like a pushy salesman here now, but let me just tell you something here. And look, if you're a Depeche Mode fan, right, we're all familiar with this artwork. And I think people like Matt Smith and can probably validate this, is when you see these things, look, we're all familiar with these images. However, when you see these things, the one that you get from Brian and I here, because these come from the original negatives and transparencies, they're not hyped or saturated. So when you look at this thing, I guarantee you, people, when they get these things, they've never realized how, they've always liked the picture, but when you actually see these originals, you cannot believe how three-dimensional it actually is. So what I'm saying to you, Ray, is when you think you've seen that picture, and I sound like look, I'm not trying to sound like a pushy salesman, and you guys who watch my channel will know I haven't endorsed any products. I get companies who contact me often saying, can you endorse products? I don't. I will eventually, but I can only get behind something I believe in, and that's why I'm saying these things are. Yeah.
I mean, take it from me. I'm independent, so
thank you.
I've got construction time again, which is this one, obviously. But the mountains, I mean, it's just like you're there. It's that good, and the depth of field is amazing because you've got the guy at the front who's lit, and then it's my favourite. Although I do really love a broken frame one because it's got the extra corn in it, which I think just who else has got that? So I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I think also is what I was saying is that you know, you must remember that, you know, when you see this artwork, whether it be on a vinyl or whether you see it, you know, because there are places where you can go to Amazon and buy Brian's artwork there, yeah. But the artwork you can get from us here, and once again, I'm not trying to sound like a pushy salesman. This is the way you're getting it. You're getting to see it the way Brian intended it to look. You know, it's not, you know, the colors, because these are actually from the original transparencies and negatives. So because Brian actually has the transparencies and negatives here, and they go from that straight to the printers. So they're not hyped or over-colored or, you know, I know nothing about photography, but all I'm saying is the images you get here are the images the way Brian intended them to look. Is that correct? Right?
Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, to answer your original question, Matt, and also Ray, I'm going to go back. Where's Ray gone? I've lost him. Ray's gone. Okay, hi, Ray. Ray, can I ask you a question? This was the early 80s, as you know. I mean, it's a good, and we're talking about 40 years ago almost, 38 years. But what happened then was battery, I'm going to get a little bit technical, but battery power in portable flashes was really, really not very, very powerful in those days. I mean, now they're immensely powerful.
It's smoky in there.
So that was lit by battery packs.
Yeah.
Battery flash, the subject was lit by. Now, I can tell you that it's shot with the Hasselblad, as you quite rightly said, Ray. Of course it was. It was shot with the Hasselblad. And it was, the Hasselblad was shut down to about, I think it was between 8 and 11, F8 and F11, probably. And the quality of that image. Sorry, have I lost you? Are you still there?
He's still there.
You're still there. The quality of that image is incredible. People order from me 100 centimeter square, or in other words, 40 inches square images of it, and it's so sharp. It's absolutely immaculate, so incredibly sharp. All my work on Depeche Mode, most of it, like say for instance Construction Time Again, or certainly A Broken Frame, are incredibly sharp images. In fact, to be honest with you, my most complete image capture on an album cover for Depeche Mode is Construction Time Again. I mean, you know, I've got a real body of work from that. Whilst, of course, A Broken Frame is, I hate to say it, but probably the most famous photograph in the world, probably. I'd like to think it is, which in fact, I know it is.
I can only imagine. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Ray.
Go ahead, Richard.
Go ahead, Rich.
Well, I was going to say, I can only imagine what camera equipment cost back in those days. My dad was a skydiving photographer, and I know the money that was thrown around at that. But can you say anything about your equipment back in those days? Was it very expensive?
Well, to afford an Hasselblad camera, to be quite honest with you, was not an easy. Oh God! You thought, oh my God, it's so much money. It was so much money to us back then. But I had to have one because I was shooting. I mean, I did Joe Jackson's Look Sharp, which was 35mm, because I didn't have an Hasselblad, and I thought, well, I'm getting album covers now. I've got to get an Hasselblad. It's no good cropping into the 35mm format. It was such a lot of money. It was like, oh, I had to breathe in a little bit when I bought an Hasselblad back then. But it was an incredible piece of kit. Incredible, because you could take Polaroid. You had a Polaroid back that you fitted on the back of Hasselblad. Now you could check what you were seeing. And when we checked A Broken Frame, when we were in that field, and we had the Polaroid back, we had the Polaroid, we shot a Polaroid on it to check the lighting was okay. We pulled the Polaroid out, develop it, keep it on your armpit or whatever for a minute or whatever it was. And then we pulled it apart and saw the Polaroid, we were like, oh my God, we almost had an heart attack in a sense, you know, where the flash married with the daylight, and it was like, oh, incredible. And in fact, that still went on when Daniel Miller first saw the picture in my studio up the street here in Motherwell. When he came in the studio that day, we were both like smirking, laughing. We were like, oh, you know, like, oh, God, Anthony, we'll see that. And, you know, it was the other side of the studio, the light box, because it was transparency there. They're all on transparency. On the light box. So we were like, fucking away in the corner. He went, oh my God! He was like almost had an heart attack, you know. When Daniel Miller, who was, as you know, they had a mute at the time. I don't know if that explains a little bit.
No, absolutely. You talked, yeah, that was you talked about it. Yeah, you talked about that on the interview I did with you on the A Broken Frame.
Yeah.
And one of my questions was, what was Daniel's reaction? And it was kind of like he
said,
and he nearly fell back because I think one of the questions I always asked Brian was, when you took that photo, did you know it was a good photo? Obviously you did, but did the did it surpass your expectations? You know, the reactions you got from people and stuff.
I didn't, because I knew it was.
You knew it was
one of the great photographs of all time, really. To be honest, I'm sorry, I don't need to be. I mean, I think it was just an extraordinary image, really.
I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult for him to, because he doesn't want to sound boastful. He's a very modest kind of guy. But, you know, you can just go up online and you can see that our friend, I say our friend Brian, yeah, because he's a friend of this whole community, my channel, this community. And he's so gracious with his time. He has been rated one of the most outstanding photographers in the last, you know, influential photographers in the last 30 years, I would say generation, you know.
Well, with that image, he has every right to boast the same way that McCulloch does about Killing Moon, saying it's the greatest song ever. I agree that Brian has the right to do that.
Yeah, I agree with the Killing Moon was the greatest song of the 80s.
I love that song.
It's incredible because, I mean, I did that. I mean, like, anyway, you want to talk about Killing Moon? I can if you want.
I had a quick question real quick. As far as that, when that Polaroid came back, did you like feel like an urgency, like we have to get this shot off right now? The light is changing, and you know, did you have to hurry up or?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it was like so fleeting. Everything was so fleeting. You know, like really, everything was changing so rapidly. So I had to go really quick. We had 3 backs for the Hasselblad. We have 3 backs. So like, woof, in they went. You know, in the backs went. Light was changing. Bang, bang, bang. Obviously, I had to wait for like the flashes to get up to power, you know. But we did bang a lot off. And as you know, from looking at the cover, the back cover, we then went to the back of the woman walking away, you know, which was the second image we did. Yes. And we had to work really quickly. And the third image we did was the woman walking across the frame with the rainbow behind her. We had to work really fast. But we were really quite equipped to do it. I mean, my assistant I had at the time was amazing. Nobody interfering at all, just me and him, and a woman of about 50 years old. That is the cornfield lady. And just, wow, this us like working like, I mean, I was a really young man, you know, I was like in my 30s, and I was really fit. We really had to work very, very hard and really, really quickly responding to everything that was happening because it was changing rapidly. Yeah.
I have a moderating note. Angela, you have your hand up. You have a question, right? Okay, sorry. I meant to get to you. I just tried to fit you in. And anybody else, if you want to ask a question, if you could put your hand up virtually like the way that Angela did. Can you explain to them how to do that? Because I always forget how to do that on Zoom.
Yeah, well, on my tablet, it's under the more. You can just, if you pull that up, it'll say you can raise your hand.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Angela. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here and talking with us and sharing the creative process. That's awesome. I want to thank you for your work. I grew up with only one Depeche Mode album, and it was Some Great Reward, so it was very formative for me. And I love all the work. I love the feeling of the Millet painting that you got with the broken frame. But I had a question for you, and forgive me if this is repetitive, but on the Speak and Spell cover, it's always been a very fascinating image for me. What was kind of the creative inspiration, and where did that piece of artwork come from? How did you create that image?
Which was that? Sorry, I missed your last little bit. What was that?
It was the Speak and Spell.
Where did that come from? The creativity for that for Speak and Spell.
Good question. So many people have asked me that question because I don't really know the answer. I don't really know the answer. I don't really know the answer.
Was it at all inspired by any kind of environmental thing, or does it just happen to be that?
It's really appropriate now, of course.
Right.
So environmentally, it's really appropriate now, with plasticity, with plastic around. I don't really know where the inspiration came for it.
You remember when you were forming the images, kind of just, that particular shoot, anything about that particular shoot when you were doing that first cover for them?
I mean, what I remember is the fact that the offices of Mute at the time were a really small shop on Seymour Place, which is fairly central London. It's off Marylebone High Street, and really, I mean, there was Daniel and there's a few other people. They were working in such a small little ground floor shop, and I remember going down and talking to him, and I think he saw my Iggy Pop Soldier album cover. He would have seen Joe Jackson's Look Sharp cover, Graham Parker's Parkerilla cover. He would have seen Peter Hamill's The Future Now cover, and he would have seen, what other cover would he have seen? My portfolio, by the way, so I'm trying to win this job for Depeche Mode. You would have seen, what would he have seen? Peter Hammill. But he would have seen all those covers and he thinks, yeah, okay, we'll give this guy a shot. We'll give this guy an album cover to do. But where it came from, I don't know. I mean, Barney Bubbles designed it. Barney Bubbles was the ultimate in graphic designers of the time. I wanted to engage him in the cover design. I've done some album covers for him before. He was a genius, really. But where the idea came from, I've just got no idea.
So it wasn't a stock photo that you already had, and they said, "Oh, we like that one."
I went down. I remember going to the taxidermist or something. The stock place.
The name of the album, Speak and Spell, and then you look at that, and did you even know the name of the album or what you're shooting for? Or?
Really good question. I'm not certain I even knew the album, the name of the album. I mean, I know that, what was his name? Vince. Vince complained because it cost £1,000 to shoot the album cover. He really complained about that.
Yeah, we actually did some research into that. This was 1981. Vince Clarke was complaining that Speak and Spell, the album cover, was like £1,000. So if you do the research, £1,000 with inflation. Okay, so what's £1,000? My American friends, that's about $1,350. Yeah, about that. Yeah. So £1,000 in 1981 with inflation is about equivalent to £4,100 now, which is how many dollars? That's over $6,000 for an album cover. But we are talking about the good old days when things had value, and you know, you needed to be an expert in able to do them. You know what I mean? So.
Right.
Well, before I get, there's a lot of hands up. We will get to these questions, but since I want to tie this in, you mentioned earlier about how Ultrabox had little budget, and Speak and Spell, they were complaining about $1,000 budget. You must have had an immense budget to shoot Construction Time Again. How much was that budget, and how did that come about? Because of the success of the broken frame image, or how did you get the leeway to go and into the mountains to shoot? I mean, it must have been quite an expense right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was 3 of us that went there. There was myself, my assistant Stuart Graham, and his brother, who was the model in the shot. So there are 3 airfares. All the styling was done by the same woman that did the styling for A Broken Frame, Jackie Fry. That was done back here in England. So there were 3 airfares, 3 hotel bills for, say, 2 nights to Switzerland. So, I mean, it's not a lot of money, is it? I mean, it's quite a bit. I mean, not all that. Maybe that took £1,000, 3 airfares.
Wow. So the price of 1 album cover.
I guess it seems like it would be a lot more but traveling from America is much different than from London to.
Yeah, but it's not very far, you know. I mean, the airfares were more expensive then than they are today.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we took everything with us, really. My lights, we hired some stuff from England. We took every single thing with us. We didn't have to ask the Swiss.
Wow. I'm up to 20 to 25,000.
Yeah, probably.
No, it'd be very cheap.
How heavy were the batteries for the lighting boxes?
But no, I mean, we did take some American lights. I can't remember what they're called, actually. We took some American lights so you could get in England for that shoot. They didn't use the right album cover anyway. So anyway, that's another thing.
No, I agree. I like some of the alternate photos. Your favorite is
much better, weren't they? Much better.
I agree. Ray, you had a question again. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know, do you still have the original Polaroid back of the broken frame from the Hasselblad?
You mean the Polaroid itself?
Oh, the Polaroid itself. Okay, yeah, some cameras have it in the back.
Yeah,
the Polaroid. Do you still have
Polaroid, but I have the back.
Oh, okay, wow.
I have the back.
Oh, wow.
The Polaroid.
I just wanted to tell you something. In 1980, from 84 to 89, I was in high school and I took photography. I'm not saying I'm a photographer, but when we got to landscapes and things like that, my professor had us look at your photo and then Ansel Adams, and just wanted, I mean, not that they're, but your photo was definitely one of the ones that we were supposed to study as far as depth of field. And that's the reason why I know it so intimately. We were trying to emulate it, but not, it was a project for school. And so thank you. It's really an honor to meet you. And thank you so much for signing my picture and everything and for giving me that.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, Ray. It's a pleasure.
I'm fanboying out a little bit here. So
we're going to have to
Brian Griffin, fanboy alert.
I know. So, thank you. Anyway.
We're up to 62 on there.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead, Mike from Seattle?
Mike from Seattle, go for it.
Hey guys. So I grabbed a couple things out of the collection. One is the Life magazine.
The front cover of Life magazine. Yep. I mean, the big magazine in America at that time.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I grabbed this back in 1990.
Good condition. That's in great condition.
Yeah, it's basically been in a box for 30 years.
Brilliant. Well done. Wow, that's beautiful.
Hardly looked at.
Amazing.
But the other fun one, which is one of the side pictures you were talking about, is the back of Smash Hits.
Oh right, yeah.
That's the one you did.
That was the one down here. Yeah.
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 My dumb question is, what game are they playing?
What game were they playing?
I don't know what game they were certainly
It was
playing.
probably football, knowing them, yeah.
Yeah, there's like 25 dice on the table, and
I don't know why. Can I have a look at that again? Can you put it up?
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is.
Yahtzee.
Oh, God.
Yeah, probably Yahtzee.
Probably football, yeah.
That's funny. In America, we probably wouldn't have any idea what the game was anyway. Because they probably have different ones in England.
Are you saying that you don't have any idea about anything in America?
that is the current state of events.
Sorry, your president doesn't have any idea about it.
He does not have any idea. Anyway, we won't get there.
Absolutely. Cool, thanks.
Tom, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to ask that anybody who knows me knows that Kate Bush is my favorite female singer of all time. And I just wonder, with her personality being so secretive or private, what was she like when you met her?
Okay. All right. I'm going to start at the beginning and work towards the end, which is a sensible thing to do. I lived out of London at the time, and I lived 40 miles out of London, and I drove down into London, and I arrived about 7:15 in the morning. Oh, there's a lady. And I thought, oh, wow, she looks great.
She's driving a truck, yeah.
And
Sorry, go on.
I arrived at my studio at 7:15, sitting in the road, on the pavement, on her own, in the East End of London, in the darkest part of London, really, like Rotherhithe was at that time, I don't know. No, people didn't want to come down there. Let's put it that way. Was Kate Bush sitting there on her own? So I drove up in my car, and she was there, and she was smoking. She was smoking the most strongest cigarettes that I could ever think of. So I smoked at the time. I smoked cigarettes, and she smoked Carols. And I don't think they were filtered. I think they were unfiltered Carols. Now, unfiltered Carols are an Irish cigarette, and they are so strong. And she smoked them. And what happened was that eventually various people arrived. My assistant arrived. The location bus arrived, and Kate's makeup artist arrived, Kate's stylist arrived, Kate's costumes arrived with my stylist, Jackie Fry, and we all set off. We set off back into where I'd come from, actually, because the location was very near my home, 40 miles out of London, in a place called Freeth, Frieth, which is near High Wycombe, which is about 40 miles out of London. And she was incredible. I mean, she had so much charisma. And then we ended up in a field, because she wanted a cornfield, like Depeche Mode's, because she'd seen Depeche Mode's Broken Frame. And she wanted to be like that, but wow, what an incredible woman. She performed incredibly, and then she got back on the bus, and we came back into London. And can we say she smoked and enjoyed herself? I don't know how to put it that way. I mean, she just enjoyed what she smoked on the way back, But we were overcome with her, really, just overcome with her. So, I mean, such a sexy woman, God.
Yeah. Well, thanks for validating that.
He just pops up. I love that.
I mean, she sent me Christmas cards every year for about 4 or 5 years. Wow. I mean, what an amazing woman.
Why did it stop?
Yeah.
Perhaps she got married or something. I don't know.
Did send one back?
Thank you.
Yeah, just to sort of say, I'm going to, on my channel, I'm going to be doing a Kate Bush special at some point. I'm going to deconstruct some of her songs because I'm a huge fan of hers as well. I've always liked her because she really fascinates me because she's one of these people. She was in the industry, but she was kind of on her own trip. You know, she was not sort of like playing to the, you know, what was famous at the time. She really was doing her own thing. And as part of that series, Brian will be here to talk about the artwork he did with her, the photo shoots, and we'll go into a lot more detail. But you see, the thing with Brian is he's a bit like, it's quite funny because, you know, obviously we're neighbors, so I'd see him pretty much every day. And, you know, sometimes we go for a drink and he'll be like, oh, yes. And then I was taking, and then one day I photographed Chewbacca. And I'm like, oh, you photographed Chewbacca. You know, so what I'm saying is there's so, Brian is such a great guy to have a beer with. And people have often said to me, I should on my channel do a thing what we call a beer with Brian, you know, where we just like we did last time, because, you know, having a beer with him, he's so much fun because where we live here, we've got our local pub here. And, you know, Brian goes down there and, you know, it's quite funny every now and then, you know, to the locals, he's just Brian. But every now and then there'll be someone that'll walk into the pub and go, oh, my God, are you Brian Griffin? And they'll be like all starstruck. And the locals are like, yeah, it's just Brian. You know what I mean? Because they've got that familiarity. But that is something I do want to look at doing is a series like a beer with Brian, you know, because there's so much to talk about, you know what I mean? Anyway, next question.
Is that Spitfire beer you're drinking, Brian?
It's Doom Bar.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, but I had a Spitfire earlier. I had a from Shepherd and Neame. I had what's it called? Oh God, lost it. I can't remember the beer. It's got Shepherd and Neame beer. Oh, hello, hiya.
One of the best.
So, Lauren, you're going to be up next, but before that, I just want to let everyone know I posted in the chat a link to Brian's site to the Kate Bush photos that he did.
Oh, right.
And it's very cool. You'll recognize it looks very similar to a broken frame as he was suggesting. So it's very interesting to see.
You know, Rob, if I had the money, I'd hire you. You're so efficient. I mean, God, you really are efficient, mate. Seriously.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I was just going there myself.
He's just so efficient. Yeah.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Vaughn. Really quickly, Vaughn, I just want to say thank you for this, by the way.
The fanboy alert. This is the merchandiser doing my channel. Thank you. I haven't even seen them yet. How do they look? All right.
Yeah, it's great. I would love to have one of these in a sticker though, because there wasn't an option for a sticker.
Oh, wasn't there? Okay, I will.
No, there wasn't.
Thank you. I will look into that. Yeah.
So, Brian. Sure, no problem. Brian, my question was about two photos that I came across in your gallery online. There's a photo of Margaret Thatcher where she's wearing a construction laborer's hard hat and she's doing a pose like this. And then you took there's another photo that you took of the televangelist Billy Graham. And I was just curious to know how you came about to take those two separate photographs. I'd be curious to hear the story about those.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can give you a story. What happened is that in the late 70s, this is starting with Billy Graham, was that I was starting to work for a magazine in Canada, Toronto. It was a weekend colour supplement that went out to various newspapers in Canada. It was a magazine called Weekend, like a colour supplement, you know, fitted in there. And they used to send me all around America to photograph people. And they sent me down to Dallas or something, to photograph Billy Graham. I can't remember exactly where. Down in Texas, I think. And then after that, I would photograph Gary Player, the famous golfer. I would do a big tour around America, like a real tour of, like with all my lights and that. I would go on my own. I'd be totally alone, and I would just go totally around. And I'd been to a Billy Graham speech, actually. I went there when I was at art college in Manchester. And I'd been to one of it when he arrived there and gave one of his great, I don't know, whatever. And he was a really lovely man. So the picture I did there was I got TV cameras to look at him. I wanted to do him as a sort of like a person really into media, I suppose. It was late 70s. and I photographed him, as you know, like looking really tough with the cameras pointing at him, all the TV cameras. He was a really lovely man, actually, a really, really beautiful man, Billy Graham. And but then again, like going off to Margaret Thatcher, which is mid-80s, probably 6 years later, whatever. I was working for property developers that were developing a large part of the City of London called Broadgate, which was Rosehorse Stanhope. They were big developers, massive. It's when the stock market exploded, Big Bang Day in '86, was it? Anyway, Margaret Thatcher was going to open a part of this big development, and I was doing all the brochures for it, all the publicity for it, actually. So, and then the developer said, "Can you photograph Margaret?" Margaret was the most powerful woman at the time, really. She really had your president,
Reagan, was it?
Reagan, he absolutely, played to her tune, and she liked Gorbachev as well. Gorbachev was, we don't know about that, but she might have, can we say, got on well with Gorbachev. You know what I mean? And I was a member of the C&D movement, which was part of a campaign for nuclear disarmament. So I thought I was never going to get into number 10. But I was given A clearance, and my assistants were as well. I had a Frenchman, a very young man, and an Englishman, just about 4 years younger than me. And all three of us went to number 10. In those days, you could drive up to number 10 Downing Street. And we got out, and there was a policeman standing outside, hello, hello, sort of thing. And knock on the door, of number 10. Because this was the early days before a lot of security now. And we were let in. And number 10 Downing Street breaks into a complete doll's house in a sense, like Alice in Wonderland. You walk through the front door, and it's like, wow, it's like a big palace, actually. And you walk up the stairs, and you see all the prime ministers as you walk up the stairs with all my equipment and things. Then we went into a big room, really, a big room which was empty and made for us, really. We set up our lights there. The first thing I did was went on her toilet, because I like going onto a toilet that's owned by can we say, blah, blah, blah. And we laid some hard hats on the table for her. And she came in, and she said, "How do you want me now?" We said, "Prime Minister, we'd like you to wear a hard hat." "Oh, fine." So she walked over to the table, and she would wear a blue one. Now, I didn't want her to wear a blue one. I wanted to wear a white one. That is for photographic reasons. I wanted white, blah, 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 blah. So I wanted her to wear a white one. But she went over and got a blue one. She came back in front of the camera, and I said, "Oh, Prime Minister, that blue helmet that you're wearing looks awful with your dress." So she went, oh, right, okay, could you choose another one, Prime Minister? So she went over to the table again, which was in the corner, the left-hand corner of the room. And there was a red one there, which of course she wouldn't wear red, Communist Labour Party. There was chrome, and she wouldn't wear chrome because chrome was a little bit maybe too garish for her. So there's only a white one left, so she picked the white one, which is what I wanted. And she came up to the camera, and as my earlier question was about the Hasselblad, I took a Polaroid of her. And it was incredible facing the Prime Minister and turning my back to her while the Polaroid developed. And I went, oh my God, I've turned my back on the Prime Minister, who was the most powerful woman in the world at the time. And she was very, very sort of very small. You know, she looked very, very like just a normal lady, actually. And I said to her, Prime Minister, would you dance for me? Please dance for me, Prime Minister. Would you be like Isadora Duncan? Now, Isadora Duncan was a famous dancer in the first part of the 20th century. And so I said, and what she did, Isadora Duncan, she got strangled by the rear wheel of a sports car. It had a spiked wheel, like sports cars have. And she had a long scarf, and a long scarf went into the back wheel of the sports car and strangled her, Isabella Duncan. But Margaret danced, no problem for me. But at the same time, the Americans, typical fashion, shot down a jumbo jet in the Gulf by mistake. And she was called, she came, her assistant or whatever came to her and said, Prime Minister, she said, go away, to her assistant. I'm doing my photography at the moment. And she dealt with that, or dealt with my picture. And it's in the National Portrait Gallery now. It's one of the photographs of Margaret Thatcher.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Thank you for
sharing. I've just learned now that Brian's photographed Maggie Thatcher now. You say it's someone new every day. It was the other day I learned it was Chewbacca. Was it Han Solo? Or was it?
Yeah, Han Solo.
And so they didn't use those photos, did they?
No, they didn't use any of them. They rejected all the pictures. George Lucas rejected the photographs I did of Star Wars, which is a shame, really. But I think he kept some, because I think they were appearing somewhere. I don't know.
You win some, you lose some, Brian.
Jessica has a question now as well. Jessica, you want to ask your question?
Hello, good afternoon.
Oh, hello! That's the girl. She's got Martin's head in a stick. You've got Martin's head in a stick.
And I got Martin for.
Are you going to have Brian's head in a stick as well next week?
Possibly for the next meeting. I'm just getting all. I'm gonna get everyone on a stick now, so I can have some company. But I wanted to tell Brian that your work is really beautiful, and I kind of commend you because back in the day when you were talking about the equipment that you had, the capability that you had, I more than anything, I was looking at your gallery, and I really love your black and white pictures. I mean, they look dimensional. They have texture. They have so many elements, and it's kind of crazy because now it's like everyone has accessibility to photography and all these tools, but you were using and doing this back when with the equipment that you had. So I just wanted to comment on that and just tell you that your work is very beautiful. I hope I do win the contest, but if I don't, it's okay. I'm still going to purchase something. But I wanted you, this was one of my favorite pictures, and I wanted you to kind of give us the story behind this picture, because I found it really lovely how you put Martin in the center, and it was able to project the texture once again with the black and white and just using a simple box. So if you had anything to add to that.
Okay, I can add to it. In my studio, when we started doing advertising, we had a lot of props. Advertising had budgets so they could buy props and things like that, like that black box, for instance. And the black box would be in the corner of the studio, and I would drag it out because we had no money for those pictures for Depeche Mode. We would not have built that black box for it because we did not have the budget for props. And I used tungsten light at the time, just purely tungsten light. I didn't have any flash at all in those early days, just pure tungsten. And as you know, with tungsten light, it's constant burning light, so you can see what's happening with your lights, And it's just tungsten light and what I had in the studio at the time. I mean, it's quite nice though, isn't it, to use the black against the two whites, and you can hero-ize Martin. It makes him look like a hero, really. which I didn't think he was. I didn't know he was because, like in those days, he seemed to me to be just part of the band, really. Alan Wilder, Fletch, they were all like just all as one. So why our hero? I mean, I think it's because he had white hair, and his white hair would stand out from the background, that box placed behind him.
Did you find, because sometimes things that look simple are a little bit more complex? So, for example, did you find it more difficult taking a black and white picture versus a color picture?
I didn't. In those days, I didn't really like color photography. I thought color photography was too real, actually. I wasn't very good at it, but then I became good at it. I like black and white because it was far more surreal. It was like another world, you know? And it developed, it was all around the image, around shape and form and, you know, image construction, you know.
I just want to jump in there. So you thought you preferred black and white, but then you produced one of the most iconic color photos in the history of photography, being a broken frame. So was that like, why did you decide not to approach that one in black and white? Why did you go for color then?
Good question. It's because it was, I think it was a necessity. It was actually Depeche Mode wanted color.
And then you realized you've got this flair for color as well?
I didn't think I had. I mean, I was told I was very bad at color photography.
Oh, okay.
But then
so
again,
you tried harder because of that?
In the early 70s, I was told I was very bad. But like what happened, I started to play around with color a bit. I started to use spray guns on backgrounds and things like with Iggy Pop Soldier.
Yeah.
I started to use different things to make my work more interesting. But I did feel a little bit, you know, I don't know what's the right word.
Like you had something to prove. Or something.
I suppose so. Yeah.
And that paid off when you did.
But when I went to America, you know, and I learned a lot in America by working. Someone asked me a question about Billy Graham. You know, I worked on magazines in America, and I learned because they have like good climate.
Yeah.
We don't. We have grey skies. It's fucking horrible here. But they have a good climate there, and I looked at their colour photography, what was being achieved over there, and then I came back and like embraced a bit of that, and it inspired me, and I started to, you know, get up on that rail. You know, interesting. Oh, who is this? Hello. Oh, yeah. Hello.
Anna has a question next.
It doesn't work like
it doesn't look like that. No, I think it pops up.
Still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. You
Hi. Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for your work. I mean, your images were pretty much like defining of my childhood and growing up. And I mean, I don't know what my childhood would have been like without them. And I still am very, very, you know, thank you for that. So I just want to let you know that before this call, I was just, you know, doing some research about you because I'm a nerd, and I noticed that there was no Wikipedia page for you, and you deserve a Wikipedia page. So I just want to let you know I'm going to build one for you.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
Please do.
Go, Jenna.
Well done.
Oh wow, you're very good.
Well, you know, if I'm a nerd, I can help out in whatever way I can. So that's what I'm going to do.
Please build one.
We like nerds in this community. Really.
And if you have any photos that I can use on the page that I'm allowed to use, you know, Rob can get you my email address.
Yeah,
you can send them to me because you have to pass. There's certain like rules for copyright, obviously, and all that. So,
sorry, what
if
is
there's any photos of you or anything like that?
What is your name? Because it hasn't popped up there.
Oh, I'm Jenna Robbins, Jenna Rose Robbins.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so we'll get in touch with you via Rob afterwards, and then I'll put you in touch with Brian, and then we can obviously say what you have in mind. And as I say, Brian's very easy to work with, and he can just send you the images and stuff. And I agree. I think he does deserve a Wikipedia page because Kim Kardashian has a Wikipedia page. So I think Brian Griffin can have a Wikipedia.
a couple notes about Jenna for you guys. Vaughn George and Brian. So Jenna actually, day one of the Depeche Mode Facebook takeover, and she has written a book about her Depeche Mode fandom, which is available on Amazon. So just
brilliant. Okay.
Nice.
Brilliant.
And I'd love to send you. I'll send you guys copies of the book if you're interested. And
absolutely.
And Rob and I are working on a Jeopardy Depeche Mode trivia night. So obviously there's a few little questions in there that'll pertain to you guys.
Well, you're in the right place.
Wow.
Yeah, I just passed the second round of Jeopardy yesterday. I passed the audition, so I actually might be on the show soon.
Brilliant. Keep us informed. We're really absolutely
will.
so interested. Absolutely. Thank you
But
so
I will
much.
start on the Wikipedia page on Monday, but I just wanted to say that, and thank you again for everything.
Bless you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Getting on Wikipedia. Let's bring to that Brian's Wikipedia page.
That put me under the spell.
It is.
Spell.
Hey, Rob, I have an additional question. If somebody's already queued up, then go ahead and go.
Hey, it's queued up, and you can be on deck, Richard.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, yeah, let me go ahead. So, Brian, do you still shoot on film at all? Just at all?
I do, yeah, I do. I mean, not that very often. The reason is I really like shooting on digital.
Right.
Because I can monitor my lighting and that. You know, I shoot everything piped with my computer piped into my camera. You know,
right?
So I can see exactly what I'm getting. You know, go on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And back then, did you also do darkroom work yourself, or
I never did.
Okay, so you were the photographer, and then the processor would process. So
yeah, I mean, I found really that when I worked in the days of Polaroid on the back of the Hasselblad, is the fact that my pictures were so perfect. Excuse me for saying this. My pictures were so perfect that I didn't need any darkroom work. Where you just had to really just put them on the enlarger and just go bang. You know, they were there already, really. Because
thank you again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead with your question.
Hello, everybody. Obviously, hello, Brian and Vaughn again. I've got two questions actually.
All right.
First one is, we all know the best Depeche Mode album covers came out of your camera. But at the same time, the band was releasing the singles, and there were the singles covers. Do you have any idea where they get the pictures from, and why they didn't choose any of your shots? That was the first one.
Chesno, are you talking about the singles 81 to 85 collection, that one?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I think that may have been Martin Atkins, or who was the guy who did who's the guy who did the photography for what was it? A Question of Time. Who's a friend of yours as well?
Anton Corbin.
It wasn't Anton Corbin. It was the other one who did. He's a British photographer who did Question of Time.
The 12-inch single, A Question of Time, with the cracked up mirrors, with the broken mirrors.
That's right. Yeah, come on. There's enough geeks. Yeah, you can help us out. Yeah.
So.
I mean, I did one single bag, I think.
Yeah.
Which was A Question of Size.
Martin Atkins, I think.
I know.
You did.
Yeah, I know, but if I might say one thing.
Leave in Silence.
I did Leave in Silence.
Yeah. What about Love in Itself? Can you do the photography for that?
Love in Itself?
Yeah, it's one of the alternative pictures.
I did Leave in Silence.
Yeah, you would have, because 82.
Yeah. The Love in Itself has like the same pictures of Construction Time Again.
Oh yeah, I mean I did 12-inch singles on Construction Time.
Yeah.
Of course I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course I did. There's 12-inch singles on Construction Time.
So maybe that's a suggestion for you guys, Vaughn and Brian, to have some more talk about your channel on the potentially pictures out of the album covers. If that makes sense for you.
So you want to hear more stories about the album covers? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, no, not album. These pictures not been used for the albums. Like for example, Live in Silence.
That's a good idea, Cheslaw. You mean do a video on sort of art pictures that were not used, sort of officially that are
exactly.
Sort of,
so, or anything but not album covers.
Okay. Well, that could be a long series.
Well, never enough. Just think enough. But there is another question now. Especially to Brian. Do you know anything upcoming about some of your maybe next book of your art?
Your book. Tell me about your book.
Yeah. I mean, it's my book. I mean, what has happened is that we've been in lockdown here, as you know full well, from March, I think, and I decided to write a book and write a book about my life. And I'm writing a book from 1969 to 1990, which involves obviously Depeche Mode, involves 20 years of my work in the 70s and the 80s. And I'm going to go for a crowdfunding. I'm going to put it out for crowdfunding. It's a 400-page book. 400-page book is it's going to cost about £39. And it's going to come out now. Well, if I get the crowdfunding, it's going to come out next March. The publishing date is March the 11th. It's a photo festival, but I might have a launch even earlier than that down here in Rotherhithe, because it's my area really. But yeah, it's going to be a really fat book with a lot of funny text of funny times that I had on shoots.
I think everybody over here would be happy to help you with that. I'm declaring myself.
Oh, thank you. Have you got a few £1,000s to put towards it?
I'm not talking about a change.
Yeah. But I think if any of you want to come, and seriously, if any of you want to come down to Rotherhithe, no matter where in the world you are, if you manage to make it down to the UK, if you want to come to Rotherhithe for that, we'd love to meet you and have a beer with you, of course. Yeah. But as I say, I'll speak to Rob. We'll put the details about Brian's book on there. Yeah, I'll give it to Rob too.
Yeah, I was going to say, give the crowdfunding information for sure. I'm sure a lot of us here would be behind that.
It's going to be September, actually. Crowdfunding.
We will all help you with that.
Oh, thank you. I need it.
Brian, speaking about your books, you had a book called Pop, and that was only a European release, right?
Yeah.
Is there a way to get a U.S. pressing of that, like a printing of the Pop book in the U.S., like a crowdsourcing, so we can get copies over here?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with Pop was the fact that I had a lot of confidence in it, but the publisher didn't have any confidence in the book. He thought I would be left with a lot of copies. But in fact, it went crazy. I mean, within 3 months, it basically sold out. You can still get copies, but they're terribly expensive. There's 1 or 2 copies in America, I think. But he had no confidence in it. He didn't think it would sell. So it had, I think there were 1,500, 1,250 copies of it.
Do you retain the full rights to that? Like, if we wanted to get a copy published here in the U.S., could we do that? Like, basically like a distribution kind of deal?
Oh, I mean, the publisher as well. I would have to negotiate with the publisher about that, because he obviously...
That's what I was wondering. Do they have the rights or you have the rights?
I mean, we both have the rights. He can't publish the stuff, and I can't publish it,
okay.
Sort of like a 50-50, I mean, I've got all the material. Yeah, he's got the design. I would have to publish it again somehow.
Yeah, I'm interested in that book, and I never got a copy. I intended to at one point. I think I contacted your publisher, and there was a couple copies signed by the band, Depeche Mode, actually. And I was going to get one of those, but I ended up not getting it somehow.
It's such a lot of money. I mean, I looked last week, on Amazon. And there's 2 on Amazon, I think, about $200 really, £167 for pop.
Yeah, it's up there for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other man for West. Anna, did you have another question?
Oh, sorry.
Oh no! Did I hit my hand up? I'm sorry. I'll take it down. That was.
Oh, that's okay.
No,
Go ahead. Richard Pedley.
Okay, so going back a little bit, what is? I mean, you self-taught. Did you just teach yourself do photography, or did you have any formal education?
Yeah, I do. I went to photography school in Manchester from 1969 to 1969 to 1972. There was 3 years. But I didn't learn a thing really. It was after I left Manchester and I came down to London to be a professional photographer that I really, really got on top of it and really learned a lot. Manchester was very formative. It was very, very good. I met a good mate of mine, Martin Parr. We were great mates. I developed my way of seeing, I suppose, at art college, but I didn't really learn very much. I was technically inept. I wasn't a particularly brilliant student, although they gave me a first-class honours. They gave me a distinction. They thought I was God reincarnated. But it was like really down in London when I started to work professionally that I really gathered, like virtually self-taught actually. I was virtually self-taught by working on professional jobs, getting things wrong, not doing very well, developing my vision, developing my way of seeing. And I really developed it up gradually through the 70s and into the 80s. I developed it up through the 80s. But in fact, into the 2000s, I'm getting better. By working professionally, I got better at photography.
I think when it comes to photography, it's either you got it or you don't. But,
you're born with it. You're either born with it or you're not born with it. You can't get good at it.
I'll show a quick question.
Thank you, Brian.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Rob. Matt wants to ask a question. I think there's a gentleman there. His name's called Mode, and I can't. He's trying to ask a question. I don't know. It says Mode. I don't know what his name is. Sorry, he's been putting his hand up for a long time. So anyway, Matt, you asked a question. I just wanted to make sure that the gentleman that's called Mode gets a chance to ask it to you.
Sorry about that.
There he is. Hello. Yeah.
Hi.
Is that Percy? Are you Percy?
Percy, we'll get to you next after Matt.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Matt. Thank you. All right, Matt, go ahead, mate.
All right, sorry. My daughter's about to start photography at A level, hopefully in September. Schools go back. What would you say between now and when she goes? Should I look at what disciplines should we try and sort of get a head around from your point of view?
Matt, sorry, your signal was quite bad there. Did you say you've got a daughter that's doing A levels in photography? Is that right?
Yes, she's just about to start in September, hopefully. Okay. And just to say, obviously they're going to teach her the things that that you done when you were starting off. But are there any things that we can help her with between now and when she starts to get ahead of it?
Anything now that she could start, to sort of get ahead with it. It's very difficult, as I say, to teach these things to people. If you can teach people, it's a little bit like. And please, I'm going to let Brian answer the question. The way I understand it is, it's a little bit like football. You can teach people how to play it, and you can give them all the training, but you cannot turn them into that Ronaldo or that Beckham. It's that that Midas touch that it's because you get that a lot where people ask you for the advice, and I think I would put it to you this way. I'm going to sort of elaborate on Matt's question. What is the best bit of advice you can give to an aspiring photographer? How's that for you, Matt? Is that
nice and concise?
You have to be really dedicated she has to be really dedicated. I mean, nothing matters to her in life apart from photography. She's got to find her own vision. She's got to find her own way of seeing things. You know, she must be confident. She must find herself. You know, with her photography, she mustn't follow trends or anything. She must find. Yeah, she must realize that she's an individual person. She's a very special person. She's unique. She's a unique woman, and she's got a unique vision. She's got to find that vision, really.
Right.
As a unique young woman, she's got that vision inside her. She's got to get it out. And I don't know.
I think that's something that is very difficult with art. Is you often hear about this, like with the case with Brian, where he was told he was useless at color photography, and then he actually has been like a prodigy. You know, it's just like, and he didn't realize that, and it's very difficult because I think, especially, and I'm not sure, but I know it's with music as well. There are many people who are told you will never make it, and then they just surprise everyone. So I think it's really, I think it is very true. Is that it's letting your individuality shine through. Really, it is difficult because very often you can be taught in a certain way. But now I'll bring it back to Martin Gore. I mean, this guy's had no music lessons, and I even learned Vangelis the other day. No music lessons. It's just that individuality and the way that, and it's like a friend of mine, James Morgan, one of our drinking buddies in the pub. He's more than that. He's a very intelligent man. We were talking about you the other day, and he was talking about how you obviously just see the world in a different way. There's just something, you know, and one thing is something you cannot explain to people.
But she, I mean, the young lady, she, you know, she can develop that. You know, she can develop her own way. You know, her own way of seeing the world that she feels. I mean, everyone's got their own individual vision of the world and visual of everything, and just find that. You just got to research and just find that. I mean, it's so difficult to explain.
Well, Matt, you're. I know you're in Kent. We're going to do a meet and greet in London here soon.
Okay.
And I'd probably say bring your daughter down. She can meet
Tell her
Brian.
not to look at other photographers.
Yeah,
Tell her to look at painting and look at art. And
you'd be happy to have to meet his daughter.
Tell her to look at art. Tell her not to look at too much photography.
And Matt, this is all recorded, so you can share this with her.
Oh, brilliant! Good luck that. Yeah, no, she just bought a camera, so you know she's dedicated. So
Best of luck to her.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Rob.